All right, let's do it. All right, we're here for another episode of Jiu Jitsu Unraveled with Darth Rader. Yes. All right. So, hey, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast. This is great to sit down and get to ask you some questions and talk jiu-jitsu with you. So, awesome.
Yeah, man, it's going to be great. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right. Excellent. Well, hey, man. So, like, one thing let's start at what I think is probably your beginning is, when I know quite a few things about you. I've seen you compete. I've followed you over the years. I've been a fan. But I'm like, man, Justin Rader, his wrestling's insane, But okay, so what drew you into wrestling when you were younger, and then how did you make that transition onward? Is basically.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So it's so funny, and I got asked this the other day on another interview that I did. And, like someone, it was more specifically towards, did you always know, was it always your dream to be a world champion? No, it wasn't. Was it my, what got me into wrestling? Was it me? Was it my own volition? Was it something I always wanted to do? No, it was not. I was 4. Yeah. At 4 years old, you don't have any idea. You're happy. Just what do you want to do at 4? You want to sit around on Saturday morning and watch cartoons. You don't want to get up at 6 a.m. to drive an hour and a half to, somewhere in Oklahoma, to go to a wrestling tournament. That's, because it's scary and it's confrontational, and tournaments look larger than life when you're 4 years old, and all that kind of stuff, So my father is the one that got me started. I was between the ages of 4 and 5. I actually started Taekwondo as well, just a little bit before wrestling. And I did wrestling and Taekwondo, and I even did a little bit of Kyokushin karate in there for almost a 10-year span.
Wow. And I had no idea.
Yeah. So I actually have a what you call a junior black in Taekwondo before I stopped. And I like I said, I did it for almost 10 years. And I have a brown belt in Kyokushin karate. But again, that was from almost 20 years ago, that I stopped training those arts. And it was about age 12 that I started training jiu-jitsu. But like I said, my father's the one that got me started. He just, most parents was just like, man, this is going to be a great, physical activity, that he'll be able to get into. It'll teach him, honor, respect, hard work, integrity, dedication, discipline. It'll build his self-esteem and confidence. Those were things that all, just like every parent, is looking for their child. That's what my dad wanted me to get out of it. And did he get me into it? Because one day I was going to be a world champion. No, it was something he did as a kid with his father. His father got him into it. And when my dad got to about high school, he kind of stopped everything and, really focused on his grades and academics, which is, kind of what they wanted, me to do as well. I just decided not to stop. I just kept going and going and going. But so, yeah, I was 4 years old when I got started in wrestling. And, I got started, my very first wrestling coach was Kevin Hendricks, who was Johnny Hendricks' father. And I was on that team.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah, for quite a few years. And, Johnny, was one of the best wrestlers in the state, even in elementary school, back then. But he wasn't Johnny Hendricks, like everyone knows him now, And his father, was a Division I national champion in college. And so my dad, and now running my own, academy, you start to see the business side of things. A lot of people, don't really look for oh my gosh, because sometimes they just don't even know what it all means, but my dad sought out the highest, most accomplished, most credible instructors and coaches that he could. That was kind of what mattered most to us, which, from learning from the business side of things, I've come to realize is that's usually not what everyone's looking for. They're looking for how close is it? How much is it? What's the schedule like? Yeah. Those were things that were not, on our radar, so it was so funny. When I started Taekwondo, they had, the team that I was on was a team called Poo's Taekwondo. And I mean, they had guys, even, like Olympic caliber, teaching and competing at that time. And that place happened to be like, gosh, maybe 3 or 4 minutes right across the street from where I was, the house that we were living in at the time. So, hey, that just worked out really, really great, but my wrestling, the wrestling program, and there were other closer wrestling programs, but man, we would drive across town, almost 30 minutes to wrestle in Edmond, Oklahoma for the Edmond Bulldogs, because that was, where my dad felt like these are the highest, most credible instructors, as well as getting, like really good training partners, like I remember my very first day, I was already wrestling with some kids that, had been wrestling for, a year and a half, 2 years, and were already some of the best, wrestlers in the state. Like I believe my very first day, I wrestled with a couple of kids named Sean Langley and Shane Carruthers, and they kicked the holy tar out of me, and it was terrible. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't feel like I was any good. I walked in there and I just got beat down hard, which is how everyone, like that's it's almost a rite of passage, And, so I remember I cried the whole last half hour of my very first practice, even like, going out there and wrestling and doing the conditioning at the end. Like I cried the entire time, and I didn't want to go back, but it wasn't a choice. My dad made me go. And so we went back and we went back and we went back and we went back. And for, I don't know, probably the next 8 years, like, I went through a lot, like I wanted to quit, but at the same time, like I also wanted to, make my dad proud. And so I didn't quit. And there were times it was really hard. Like my dad's also a doctor, so like there was one time, and I didn't think this one through. Again, I'm like 6, but it was just like, I wanted to try to play sick, well, my dad's a doctor, so I didn't think that one through, so he pulled me out from underneath the bed. No, we're going to practice. You're not sick, because he knew I didn't want to go, just because like I just didn't enjoy it, because I didn't feel like I was any good. And if I were to go back and do anything differently, I would maybe have taken it, a little bit slower. Like I did my first competition, like only a month after, like being in the room or whatnot. And it was so scary, and it built up like a traumatic mental block in my mind. I just, from a very young age, I just associated like, that tournaments were big and scary and hard, and I was really, after years and years and years, I was really a great room wrestler, like in the room, I could hold, my own with some of these state champion caliber wrestlers, but I just couldn't do it. Like I would go out there and I would lose to, I would go 2 and out, and I would lose to people like, while the friends that I would do well with in practice were winning, and it wasn't a technique thing. It wasn't, it was a very little bit of a physical thing, but it was 99% a mental thing. And that was just something that I had to get over. And like I said, there were different times, throughout the years, I begged to quit. My dad just wouldn't let me, and it, again, being on this side of the, business side of things or whatnot, like I see it all the time too. Parents will like, ask their kids, hey, well, what do you think or whatnot? And they will let them make the decision. No, oh, you don't want to do anymore. You want to quit, like, okay, well, he's not interested anymore. We're going to go ahead and quit. And it's just like, you are setting him up or her up for just like it's a slippery slope to begin walking, at least finish out whatever time frame you have through. Like you have to finish everything you started. Like when I started other sports, my parents made me finish, whatever season, this, that, and the other, whatnot. Like, but like if you leave the decision up to an 8-year-old, they don't have the maturity to decide whether they should keep going yet or not. They don't possess that maturity. If my parents just, oh, you don't want to do it, okay, well, you don't have to do it anymore. It's your decision. Dude, who knows how, I may have turned out, and who knows what my life would look like otherwise. I learned the value of hard work and discipline because they made me go even when I didn't want to go, and there's so much value to that, So I look back now and like, I thank my father every single day that he never, ever, ever let me quit, because eventually you have those breakthrough moments and then another breakthrough moment, So like I said, I got asked, just the other day on a podcast interview, like, was it always your dream to be a world champion? No, it was not. It was not always my dream. That probably didn't start to surface until I was about 16 years old. and I started to have some success in high school wrestling, and I did pretty well. And I started to have some success in jiu-jitsu, and I did pretty well. And like I won some Pan Am medals, and I just, it was just kind of the next step. Then I just kind of kept pushing it to see just how far I could go. And lo and behold, about 8 years, after that, I won my first, no-gi jiu-jitsu black belt world title, and then I started fighting, professional mixed martial arts. And I did that for about 5 years and took that as far as I could too, and I look back and I'm just like, there's so much that I learned from my story and my journey. And now I get a chance as an instructor, as a teacher, to share that, with, the new generation coming up. And it's absolutely awesome. And I love doing it. So that's a little bit, about my background. And it's also funny too. Everyone likes to give me a lot of kudos and credit for being a great wrestler. I am not. I am not a great. My skills, dude, you want to see really good wrestlers, watch the Division I national championships, those guys are good. I do some things well, and I've been doing it for a long time, but man, those guys, they are the elite of the elites, the Kyle Dakes and the David Taylors and the Jordan Burrows, those, the Kyle Snyders, those guys, I get a lot of credit for it because I kind of brought over what I knew and I kind of hybridized it, in the jiu-jitsu submission grappling world, which is great, which is fantastic. But I think a lot of people, I won some big matches with some takedowns and it kind of developed into this, oh my gosh, don't stand and play takedowns with Justin Rader. That's, and honestly, it is probably, where I, had the best opportunity of winning, but I think it was, people say, don't fight names, I love the moment in Gladiator where Juba is talking to Maximus. He says, you have a great name. He has to kill your name before he kills you. And it's kind of the same principle. It just kind of became known. I won a couple of big matches, with some takedowns, and it was almost like no one really just challenged me very much anymore when it came to takedowns. So that's kind of how all that developed. But I don't think of myself as a really great or elite wrestler. I mean, I'd say I'm solid, and fairly decent at some things. But man, there are some really good wrestlers out there that that really know what they're doing. So I just wanted to throw that in there as well.
Man, we have this. He was a national champion. He coaches a college that's probably at 20 miles from us, and he's a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, but he's like a heavyweight. His name's Leroy Gardner. You ever meet or know that guy?
I don't know that name off the top of my head, no.
He is so good, man. And his wrestlers come in cross-train. It's great cross-training with those guys. But when he comes in, he just wrecks shop. It's so good. He's like, I'm just a blue belt, guys. He's national champion. He's
right?
Division III, but he's super nice guy too.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, nice having him nearby for sure. So how has you mentioned that you hybridized some of your wrestling for jiu-jitsu? You think you could elaborate on that a little bit? In what ways have you crossed it over? Is one a foundation or a base for the other? How would you describe that?
Yeah. Well, I started wrestling, like I said, at about age 4. I did that, so when I started jiu-jitsu, it was about age 12. And for maybe a, half year, almost 8 months, I kind of did all three. I was taking Taekwondo, I was taking wrestling, and jiu-jitsu, so jiu-jitsu and Taekwondo are not seasonal. Those are all year round kind of things. Wrestling is seasonal, but it just got to become too much. So I was about 6th grade, 5th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade when I decided to just put a stop to Taekwondo and Kyokushin karate as well, which I'd already kind of taken a stop to that anyways. And I just stuck with wrestling and jiu-jitsu. I found jiu-jitsu because, I was, like I said, my father had me in a lot of different martial arts. And one of the dads on the wrestling team that I was on, I had started wrestling for the Deer Creek Elementary team. Like I said, it must have been about maybe 5th grade. And one of the fathers there knew that we were, big into martial arts. Well, he had driven by a place that said Jiu Jitsu, and that was the only word that he saw and that he knew. And so he mentioned it to us, and we went and checked it out, and I just started training Jiu Jitsu from that point on. And when I did, like I said, I dropped Taekwondo at that point, because on it, like as I grew older too, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, academically, I started to have more homework that started to take up more time, had to put more effort into that, and my parents were always like, hey, like, as long as you're making straight A's, then you can do other things. But if your grades start to falter, well, then everything else, we're going to, like, you won't be able to continue doing this. You won't be able to continue doing that. So I always, like the load that my academics took, and, the load that, wrestling season takes, as well as jiu-jitsu being an all year round sport, I just, we decided to put a stop to some of these other things as well, to pursue this new path. And, so when, and, again, like, 6th grade, especially by 7th grade, I was wrestling for the middle school team. During wrestling season, I was actually not training jiu-jitsu at all. I would, take a break, and I would do all of, the wrestling season, because between, those practices and my commitments to the team during the season, just became too, I mean, I like in wrestling, I mean, like, after your first, almost, not even quite 2 months, into the season, I mean, then your competitions start for the next, almost 3 months after that. And I mean, it is almost every, other than, Christmas break, especially by the time you get to January, I mean, every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday was competition, Tuesday night duel, Thursday night duel, Friday, Saturday night, Friday night, all day Friday and all day Saturday, was a wrestling tournament, and I was getting I would get nearly 50 matches in a season, in about, the better part of about 3 months. And so it's incredible when you think about it. Like, you think about, jiu-jitsu tournaments, and if you're not able to travel very much, like, you get maybe, like, if you're lucky, you get maybe 5-6 matches in a year. I was getting 50 wrestling matches in like 3 months. So it definitely helped in that way. And so once I got to that point, I would wrestle during wrestling season, and then I would only, I would do, like, once off season hit, I didn't mess around with freestyle and Greco too much. I did it a very little bit, but I basically returned right back to jiu-jitsu. And so I already had about 8 years of wrestling when I started jiu-jitsu. I didn't like wearing the gi, but it was so important that I did train in the gi. And, like, you hear it all the time, like, should you train gi? Should you train no gi? Should you train both? Is it good to only train one or the other? Like, I don't see any, like I think it's actually limiting if you only do no gi, or if you only do gi. I think you're missing a whole side that can complement, one to the other, because of the different things and the different nature, of what grappling in both is like. And so I trained so much in the gi that I actually started my gi game, if you will, actually got better than my no gi game. And then when I kind of switched back and I reverted over to no gi, all of a sudden my no gi game shot through the roof, and it was great. And then I more gi, more training in the gi, more training in the gi, more training in the gi. I'd switch back over, no gi, more gi, more gi, more gi, more gi, more gi, no gi. And, I think you might always, prefer one over the other. Like, at the end of the day, if you ask me, gun to my head, which one do you like better? I like no gi better. I like submission grappling better. It's, a little harder to control me, to grab on and just hold me down, or just hold me in place, and I can't move around quite as much in the gi as I can in no gi, but at the same time, like, if I had always moved at that pace, and no gi is a very, 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 very fast pace, much faster than the gi, if I had always moved at that pace, I may not have been able to, take the time that I needed to slow down and really think things through, and thought process wise, gather that info the way that I needed, which is why I believe it's so important to train gi and no gi, because training the gi will force you to slow down if you can't just slow down yourself. And the gi helped me start to see, understand, analyze, and realize the most common reactions in certain positions and the way people would move. And I started doing that. I brought that over to no gi, and it was like, okay, well, like, these are normal, like, most commonly, this is what happens. and I started to plan for it. So if you already know, you know, and have a really good idea of what's going to happen before it happens, it's not beyond a certain level of control, and it's much easier to control where matches go. And, you know, the other thing that I did too was like, I made so many mistakes, you know, at the beginning, trying to integrate my wrestling with my jiu-jitsu. And there are a lot of other reasons as to how that played out as well. Like I started training jiu-jitsu in 1998, you know, and I would go to jiu-jitsu tournaments. The first of all, like there weren't kids classes, you know, like there really weren't kids classes during that time. Second of all, there weren't kids tournaments, you know, like in abundance like there are now with a bunch of kids to compete against. There wasn't that. I started competing as an adult when I was 13 just because I had to. Like it was the only way to get matches, you know. But most adults, you know, especially starting out in jiu-jitsu and a grappling art, hadn't really grappled before. So their wrestling was, well, god awful. It was not good. And so it gave me a huge edge, you know. I actually never won an adult white belt tournament. You know, I got a couple matches as a kid, maybe like here and there, like, you know, there'd be one kid here, one kid there. I won some gold medals that way, but I actually never won a white belt gold medal. You know, I got third, you know, quite a few times at the adult level. And then I got to my blue belt and I was 16 and, you know, I was, you know, starting to get a little bit of strength or whatnot. And I could really, you know, getting that first takedown points, you know, really, really helped. And, you know, like that's kind of how I started to form strategy. It was like, if I could walk out there, you know, and I can take you down as long as you don't sweep me. And as long as I, you know, don't tap, I win. And it was pretty easy to put, you know, together a strategy like that. And that's why it's one of the things that I think wrestling helped so much with was wrestling helped me strategize because the rules of wrestling are different. You have 3 individual separate periods that are much shorter. And so you can be saved by the clock if you're in a really bad position. And then you get to make a decision that, you know, you get a decision in one period and then in the third, you know, or vice versa, then your opponent gets, you know, a decision as to where, you know, like what position they want to start in for the next period. And those kind of things, like, you know, there's a real strategy that goes into that, you know, depending upon, was there a score in the first period? Was there not a score? Am I winning? Am I losing? You know, do I want to know what I have to do in the third period? So defer right now, give him the choice. All those things are strategy. So it helped me really formulate strategy, which was something else, you know, especially like a long time ago, I didn't see a whole lot of going on in the jiu-jitsu, you know, grappling world. Was there, it seemed that people just I couldn't, like, I would watch, you know, other people grapple and I would watch their matches. It was just like, they're going out there and they don't really seem to like they know what they're doing as far as like moves, but they're not like there didn't seem to be like an overall game plan at all. You know, and so mine was go out there, take you down, and make sure that I didn't get swept and make sure that I didn't tap, and I would win. And that was awesome, you know, because like, especially being 16, competing in the adult divisions, like, you know, like 23, 24, 25, you know, even up to like almost 30-year-olds at that time, like, you know, they still possessed a lot of like, you know, strength and confidence over the years that I didn't have developed, you know. So I won a lot of 2-0 matches as a blue belt, because every jiu-jitsu match starts on the feet, which I didn't realize at the time, but, you know, ended up being a huge X factor and advantage for me because, you know, considering starting on the feet or already being on the ground, you know, like where was I, you know, where did I hold the greatest advantage? Well, it was standing on the feet. So I got to start every single match on the feet, which is where I feel like almost against anyone in the world, especially nowadays in grappling, is where I have my, like that's my position. That's the position I like to be in, you know. You don't get to start in, you know, spider guard. You don't get to start in 50-50 guard. You have to work your way there, you know, from the standing on the feet, which is where every match starts, you know. And even walking out there to pull guard, there's still a moment on the feet where you have to make sure you don't get taken down. And that was where I started to really hybridize, you know, my wrestling to adapt it, especially for people who wanted to pull guard. And I developed an entire offense of being able to shoot before any contact happened, you know. And unfortunately, over the years, like, you know, like jiu-jitsu refs are not wrestlers. And so their ability to understand and even interpret what happens on the feet is, you know, I think it's better now, but it was incredibly limited. It's still in some ways limited, but they weren't good at all. So they were, I mean, I missed a buttload of takedown points over the years that I probably should have gotten. but at the end, it all turned out, in the wash. So I made so many mistakes. I definitely got caught in guillotines. I got caught in triangles. There was a, instead of really, technical mount escape or whatnot, like there were times when I would try to just bridge, which I still think has value, but I would turn and give my back. I would get caught. I made so many mistakes, so many years or whatnot. So like when people ask me, what it looks like, like how did I hybridize it and all that kind of stuff, it took time. It took a lot of time, I started jiu-jitsu when I was 12 and I'd already been wrestling 8 years. I wrestled all through high school. So I won my first, no-gi jiu-jitsu world title in, 2010. I won my first, purple belt world title in 2007, so, and I was 21 at this. So, I mean, we're talking like it took, 10 years of, doing wrestling, doing jiu-jitsu together. It took me 10 years before I really finally figured out or figured like, I've kind of got it figured out how I use my wrestling to keep myself safe, how I need to adapt it, make sure I don't get caught in this guillotine, don't get caught in this triangle, how I still utilize it to get my points to make sure they don't pull guard. That was probably 10 years. And so, when you think about it, like, especially people starting something new, when you start, you suck. You're not good, and you get beat down and beat down and beat down. And that's not much fun. But, you kind of get through it, you work through it, you start to have some success. It starts to become more fun. You build up some defense, you get to stay in the game longer. It becomes a little more fun. It's not much fun when you get beaten like 8 seconds flat every single time. That sucks. And you feel like discouraged and, most people, maybe they can come back, the next day, and the next day they can keep it up a week, they can keep it up a month, but a lot of people can't really handle that. The ones that do, are better for it, and they start to have some success, and it just takes time. And, so like what, again, happened to me was like, it just takes more time, so let's say the learning curve for, like when you start jiu-jitsu, let's say the learning curve is, from here to here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you start having some success. Okay. All right. Well, what I had to do was like, because I was wrestling and doing jiu-jitsu and I was trying to, find a way to merge both, it made the learning curve out here. So my learning curve was longer, which, if the learning curve is longer, what happens then? More people than not drop out. More people don't experience the success as soon as they would like to, and they fall into the trap of, what, I'm no good, I'll never be any good, maybe I should just move on, try to find something else, and so they quit. So what, like when you talk about, learning wrestling and learning jiu-jitsu, I was very lucky in the sense of the fact that I've kind of found both at an early age, and I learned both at the same time. Yes, when I was wrestling, I wasn't doing jiu-jitsu, and when I was doing jiu-jitsu, I wasn't doing wrestling. But I for the most part, between the ages of 12 and 18, because I stopped wrestling in high school. I actually didn't wrestle in college. So like I did both in tandem for 8 years, and I got, I made all the mistakes at the lower belts, so that by the time I got to that black belt level, I had put them together, already really, really well. And the learning curve was just longer, but once again, because my father never, ever, ever let me quit as a kid. He didn't leave the decision up to me, right? He didn't turn to me, hey, it's your decision. If you don't want to do this anymore, you don't have to. That's not how it played out, And because he didn't, I was able to, like it was already instilled in me, this discipline and this drive and, like this never quit attitude, and because I had that, I was able to get through it, and I was able to accomplish some pretty big things.
Yeah, man, that's a great story to pass on to the parents of your students.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, I think I might pass your story on to the parents of my students.
Hey, I love it. I love it. Like I and like people, like when you think about, going and teaching seminars and stuff, like, you always want to impart, some wisdom. That's one of the stories I mean, of course, like, hour and a half or so worth of techniques or whatnot. But like, I think honestly, what you get most out of seminars is hearing the stories, of those that came before you, and like, man, that's kind of where I want to go, and what was their experience like, getting there, and like hearing that it wasn't easy, and it was a long road. road, can be very encouraging and inspiring.
Yeah, man, for sure. So you've done a lot of amazing things. You've mentioned some of your accomplishments in terms of titles and championships, and the fact that you've fought in professional MMA. You've got this other traditional martial arts background I didn't know anything about. But just in context of all of that, without hey, let's talk about this match and that match and this match and that match and this guy and that guy.
There's a lot.
There is, right? So out of all of that, I all your championships, what was the most satisfying for you personally, and why?
Man, that, and I have been asked that question, and it's almost kind of funny. It's almost like it almost changes depending upon what season of life I'm in. And as I continue to look back at my career, it was like, well, maybe, and not even just as my season of life changes, but like I have so many students now, and I have just so many stories, to look back and share. Like sometimes it's almost like, like what do I believe that, my student body needs to hear, and like whichever. So can you really nail down one that's most important? This, that, the other. Like it's so difficult, to do. But if I was to, like really nail one down, it would probably have to be like, if I look back, which one was probably like, the most satisfying. Like, man, I mean, I could talk about so many, but I maybe I'll just mention a couple and not go too deep into them. Probably the first biggest one that was most satisfying was winning my first no-gi, jiu-jitsu title, world title at black belt, because, like it kind of takes the, taking the monkey, getting the monkey off the back, like finally won my, because like I had won at purple belt in the Ghee. I had won at brown belt in no-gi, and I had just gotten my black belt, like 2.5, almost 3. Yeah, 3. I got my black belt 3 months before competing in the no-gi jiu-jitsu worlds as a black belt. In fact, like I got my black belt a week before competing in the American Nationals, and I was actually able to win the American Nationals in no-gi at that time. And then I turned right around, like almost 2.5 months later by that point in time, and won my very first black belt no-gi world title, and had some really tough matches. It was this is a really funny story that a lot of people don't know leading up to that first black belt world title. And then I'll talk about one other that was really satisfying to me as well, because I'll nail it down to 2 or 3. But this story is hilarious. So I'm at the no-gi worlds, and the day's about to, or not the day, because like the lower belts compete on like Thursday and Friday, and then you have the black belts on Saturday. And at that point in time, we didn't even have, like for no-gi, they didn't even have it wasn't even on Sunday. I think it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or maybe it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I can't really remember that. But I remember on being there on one of the earlier days, and I was, I went down, checked my weight, all that kind of stuff. I'm walking up the stairs, and Mackenzie Dern was coming down the stairs, and, I had, of course, seen her around, and I was like, hey, what's up, Mackenzie, blah, 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 and she was like, hey, blah, blah, blah. And, she asked me, like, if I was competing. I can't remember if she competed in that tournament or not. But I was like, yeah, it's, going to be my first one at black belt, like got a pretty tough division, even a pretty tough first round, which, I mean, I was being nice, I was being modest, and I was, man, I got a really tough first round, because I felt like the way the bracket had played out, like I was like, man, I think this is, excellent. I think it's perfect, like the guy I had first round, was definitely really tough. It was a guy named Henan Borges. And I was like, yeah, I've got, Henan Borges first round, super tough guy, but, I'm, going to go out there and really give it my all. I didn't want to sound like, too confident, like, or like, someone who's like really arrogant, but I felt like I had a really, I really felt like I had the edge in that match, and the way the match played out, I really did. But at that time, but Mackenzie kind of just goes, oh, I'm sorry. Well, go out there and do your best. And I was just like, you're already counting me out. Like, you come on now, you know? And, you know, that day, that match, you know, went really, really well for me. And then I had another really tough guy in the semis named Rodrigo Haniri. And he was a really tough guy back in the day. And then I had Carlos Holanda in the finals, you know, who was a multiple time finalist in both gi and no gi. And, you know, that match, you know, came down to the wire. And it's also so funny too. Like, you know, we have refs decisions in this art, which I think are less good. You know, I don't really agree with refs decisions. I think an overtime is perfectly valid and necessary, especially at, you know, the level we're talking about now. But this is a funny stat too. I've got some funny stats about me in grappling. I have never won in the IBJJF. I never won a ref's decision except for 2. And both refs' decisions I happened to win were the no-gi jiu-jitsu black belt world finals. So I guess if it comes out to all in the wash, if I had to trade all the other decisions in to win those 2 titles, I guess I'm okay with that. I can live with that, you know? So I won the decision over Carlos Holanda. The next 2 years I faced Cobrinha in the finals and had so, you know, one of them was really, really close. The other one, he smashed me and he beat me by like 15 points, you know, but Cobrinha is pretty good. And then I faced Casino in 2013, and I was, you know, both decisions I really felt like, you know, I should have won. I felt like they shouldn't have even been decisions. Like Carlos Holanda was, you know, I didn't actually even score any points on him. It was 1 advantage to 1 advantage by the end. But in my match with Casino, I felt like I really dominated that match, and there were some points that I should have earned that didn't get put up on the board for whatever reason. And so I feel like, you know, both decisions were right, but you just never know, you know, when it's left like that, you know, and like it you know, there's some, I really hate cliches for the most part. There are some that like are okay, but like, you know, one of the cliches I hate the most is don't leave it in the hands of the judges, you know, like, and you know, I mean, yeah, you know, like at the end of the day, like, you know, I guess you shouldn't, and that sounds like a really macho thing to say, but like, you know what, if I'm in a real altercation, you know, against someone who, you know, doesn't have any martial arts training, yeah, you know what, you can tell me that all day long. I won't leave it in the hands of the judges. Okay. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to take that guy apart or whatnot. I'm going to defend myself and my family the way that I need to, and it's going to be fine, you know? But we're not talking about like someone who's not well trained or whatnot. We're talking about like 2 top tier guys, and it's just not always going to end in submission. It's not always going to, you know, like sometimes the you know, like you know, and that's why I think we should get rid of, you know, refs decisions anyway. But, you know, don't leave it in the hands of the judges. Like, man, you know, I think it's a stupid, ignorant thing to say, but it sounds macho, you know. So beyond winning my first black belt world title in no-gi, I think probably the next most satisfying win that I ever had, you know, was, you know, which has a really good lesson, you know, and story attached with it as well, was my very first match in the 2013 ADCC Submission Wrestling World Championships, where I drew Augusto Tanquinho Mendez first round, you know, like looking at that bracket too, you know, I still look at that bracket. I'm like, you know, man, like, you know, it really sucks that we got matched up in the first round. And it's another thing that I feel strongly about, like, especially at the level we're talking about, like, you'd think that there'd be, I don't know, maybe more, you know, actual seeding and rankings going on, but there isn't. And that needs to be fixed. But, you know, so I drew Tanquinho first round. And I remember, like, I you know, traveling to Beijing, you know, and I was cutting so much weight. And, you know, like I was miserable and it was terrible. And, you know, I remember hearing the brackets came out and I was like, well, who did I get first round? And they were like, you know, and so someone said, you know, Augusto Mendez. And I just sat up. I was like, I drew Tanquinho first round, you know, and a lot of people don't know this. Tanquinho's previous 2 wins before that match, he beat Cobrinha and Rafael Mendez back to back in the Ghee World Championships, and I was his very next match, you know. And I'm just like dad gum, like, man, I drew, like, you know, like because my previous 2 ADCCs, I had, you know, Rafael Mendez in the finals, and he went on to be champion of both of those, and now I drew like the guy that just beat him first round. And I remember like, you know, starting to like almost disbelieve in myself. And, you know, I was almost like accepting defeat and starting to make excuses. And then we weighed in, and I saw him at weigh-ins, and he looked like, you know, he was kind of struggling too with the weight cut, yada, yada, yada. You know, he just didn't. And when I saw that, it kind of like reinvigorated and re-inspired me. And I was just like, I started to believe again. And, you know, it really, really taught me. It was just like, man, it's so important that you just, you know, like no matter what, no matter who, you've just got to believe in yourself. And I went out there, had a 20-minute, you know, absolute, very tough match with him. And, you know, in the ADCC, they have 2 overtimes, and we did both overtimes. And then they have a decision making process after that. And I was able to win the decision there, which was nice. But it was, you know, like probably, you know, cause I've had some really big wins, you know, in my career. But that one was, you know, really, it really showed me like, I really do have what it takes to hang with the very, very, very top guys on a consistent level.
You know, one of my guys wanted me to ask you this. He's actually going to be our second student ever that we promote to black belt. He's going to be like him and another guy, right? And he's actually one of my mentors in history, right? Like he was my history professor coming up. He's trained with you before. His name's Jeff Woods, but yeah, those matches you mentioned with Cobrinha and Mendez, those guys being like top tier. What did you learn from those matches? Like you kind of mentioned like you had kind of like put them in some context between like, oh, this guy beat them, and I mean, I look at those guys in a very similar way I look at you, by the way, right? It's like, wow, these guys are just top tier. Yeah. But what was it like rolling with those guys in a high level competition like that?
Incredible, absolutely incredible. You know, and because those are 2 guys like. You know, I remember watching Cobrinha, you know, as a blue and purple belt, you know, like the year I won the purple belt worlds in the Ghee, Cobrinha won black belt worlds in the Ghee, you know? So, I mean, he was already the man. And, you know, like I had 4 matches, you know, with Cobrinha, and I went 0-4. And I had 5 matches with Rafael Mendez, and I went 0-5. And I had 2 matches with Guillermo Mendez, and I went 0-2. So if you add all those up, you know, it's funny when you look at my black belt record, you know, I have 11 losses, you know, to only 3 guys. Those 3 guys together, you know, constitute more than half of my losses at black belt, which is kind of funny. just another funny stat, but it was absolutely incredible. But each one of those matches, like those guys, you know, like and the year that I won Purple Belt Worlds was also the year that Rafael Mendez and his brother won Purple Belt Worlds. They were at the weight class below me at that time. They were at light feather, and I was at feather. And, you know, I had, you know, definitely, you know, knew about them and seen them on scene, but Cobrinha was already winning at black belt, you know? So for Cobrinha, it was like, you know, like getting out there and going with him and doing good. And like, I mean, I had I had 1 match, you know, 2 match, 3. I had 3 matches with him that were decided by 2 points or less, you know? And then the 4th match, like I said, he beat me by like, I don't know, 15, 17 points. And that match was my second match with him in the Nogi World Finals. And that was the first time like he had actually gotten to be on top for like a significant, you know, amount of time. You know, because with my wrestling and everything, I was able to, you know, kind of, you know, continue to maintain and keep top position. But the one time he got on top of me, it was just like I know heavyweights. I've grappled with even some pretty high level heavyweights that don't have that kind of pressure. I mean, that was absolutely, I felt like there was a semi truck on top of me. And I remember thinking in the middle, I was just like, I really can't move. Like, this is wrong, which is not a good place to be. You're like, oh my gosh, like what's going to happen now? You know? And I eventually, oh yeah, that's this is, you know, cause I'm a strategist, like, you know, wrestling really taught me that, you know, like I was trying to escape. He ended up getting my back and sunk this RNC so deep, there was no way out. but there was. I remember I'm like, oh my gosh, out of bounds is less than 2 feet away. And so, I mean, I couldn't breathe. I was caught dead to rights. I rolled out of bounds. Then the IBJJF, they stop it and they give Cobrinha 2 more points and they stand us back up on the feet. So I remember just blah, rolling as hard as I could to get out of bounds. Like, let's get this restart, and like give me, maybe another shot at like, because by that point in time, I'm playing the Hail Mary game because I'm already down by like, 12 something points, but hey, you never know. Maybe I could walk out there, jump flying guillotine, maybe catch him or something, so like strategy wise, it gave me the best shot. But I had 3 matches with him that were decided by 2 points or less, but Mendes, always had my number, so you always have that one guy who's got your number. For me, that happens to be Rafael Mendes. That guy just has my number. And you talk about styles make matchups. Like, our styles, like as they clash, they're like, like almost completely 180 degrees. Like, I'm very much walk out there, try to take you down, stay on top. And he's very much walk out there, pull guard, invert, at that time, invert underneath and get to your back and choke you out, and don't get me wrong. Like I'm not saying that he's not, absolutely elite in like every other area. I'm not saying that he can't, Pat, because he can, like I mean, how many world titles has he won? Like probably more than 10, or so, or whatnot. I think Cobrinha, if you add them all up, it's like won like 13. It's just like, dude, like once you get, I mean, you can do everything or whatnot, but like, what was he really, really good at in those other high level matches? I mean, he was known for, pulling guard, sweeping you into a position where he didn't really have to pass. He was just already on your back and then choked you out, So he just always had my number. But, competing with those guys, like I talked about earlier, it was just like, it helped me work through like competing against people with names, it's just like I can compete and I can hang. And like it was also like also too, like when you grapple with guys at that level, like it's the same kind of concept. It's like, you show me your 5 friends and I'll show you your future, like who are you constantly grappling with and around and competing against, like I was constantly competing again, and being around, those kind of guys, and not even just in a training room setting, like an actual competition setting. And I mean, I had, like I said, 5, like, it's why I don't have any black belt Ghee medals, because it seemed like almost every tournament, Pan Ams or Worlds, I faced Rafael Mendes in the quarterfinals all 5 times. All 5 times I faced him in the round right before the medal rounds, like, so that's, and that guy went on to win when those tournaments that he beat me in, he was the winner. So that's why I don't have any Ghee titles. Cause 3 of those times one was in the Pan Ams and twice was in the Ghee Worlds, I believe, or maybe twice was in Pan Ams and one time was the Ghee Worlds. I faced that guy in the quarterfinals, the round before the medal rounds. So that's, so it truly, a fantastic experience, but, just goes to show it's kind of like that, like just being able to have the chances and that number of times to compete against those guys, like it kind of rubs off on you, and so those are probably, some of the what it was like and what I gained, grappling with those guys over the years.
Yeah, man. Awesome. So, couple more questions for you here, Justin. So some moves that like I've kind of got to train with you a couple of times since you've been coming and hanging out, and like there's this one time. Were you there when I was pro to bite boat? Is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so I think it was that one, right? But yeah. Like you're teaching guillotines, and Nate Murdoch and I were over there being like, oh man, you're so enlightened. That's what Nate said. He's so enlightened. But like you have some signature moves: calf slasher, the truck, guillotine. These are some things I know you for. What are some how did you go about developing the game you put together? Is it your game based around these things? Or are those your signature moves? Do you have other things that are your preferred go-tos? Like,
you start talking about, I was talking about some funny stats earlier. Here's another really funny stat. You know how many arm bars I've done in my, 21 years of jiu-jitsu.
In competition or just reps?
Competition. Yeah, no, competition. You know how many arm bars I finished in competition? I'll let you guess.
10.
0.
I was gonna say 0.
Never, even at white belt, blue belt, I've never finished anyone by arm bar. I finished 1 triangle. I've done like 2 or 3 kimuras. I've actually finished 0 ankle locks. I have 1 heel hook finish in a Fight to Win Pro. So it's nice that I got at least 1 on the leg, and that was something that Ryan Hall showed me, which was awesome. But most of my finishes are guillotine and calf slicer. So how did that develop? And couple different things. My in high school wrestling, the position I had the most success with, was a front headlock. And I was in especially middle school, high school, I was a takedown artist. And I had some amazing coaches. My head wrestling coach, Andy Howington, and my assistant wrestling coach was a man named Matt Myrick. And man, they were, some of the hardest nosed, toughest dudes around. But especially Matt Myrick. Matt Myrick was a takedown artist, and so was I. It's what I did. I mean, I would go into matches, in middle school, high school, and I would rack up 7, 8, 9 takedowns, some matches there. I had one match, that I won, like 28-13, and I tech falled a guy. I got 13 takedowns, that match. And one of those, I took him down to his back and got a couple points, as well. So it's just kind of who I was. And I developed that because I developed a really good front headlock game. And, I won a couple of, pretty big matches with my front headlock, and it kind of just became known, like, don't shoot on Justin Rader, because then you're going to go underneath. And if he gets a good sprawl and wraps your neck and head in that front headlock of his, I had a really good front headlock whip over, where I could, I start to spin around behind, looking to get my points, for the referee's position in wrestling. And, if you started to turn and keep up with me, especially if you try to like maybe take advantage of grabbing my legs, I was really good at whipping you right to your back and pinning. I pinned over I pinned over like 70 people, in my high school career with that. And so it just kind of became known, don't shoot on Justin Rader. You're really taking your chances. And that really opened up my offense. And that's how, I really kind of became a takedown artist. And, but I wasn't very good. I mean, I could get up from bottom, like, really, really fast because of my coaches, but I wasn't really great on top. Top got me in trouble more often than not than anything else. So I just let people up, take you down 2 points, give you 1 point for letting you up, take you down 2 points, 1 point up, I scored 2, 3, 4 takedowns a period, and I had, like I said, I had plenty of matches, but like I would wear people down so much, that like, okay, now, so now I've taken you down 3, 4, 5 times. I'm winning by 3, 4, 5 points. I can start, really stalking you and putting pressure, and you can't just keep backing up in wrestling like you can in jiu-jitsu, because they're much better at calling stalling calls and whatnot, and you can use it as a strategy. And I forced people to shoot because I left them with no other option or choice. And I was really good at, my front headlock whip over. Well, in wrestling, you can't do a no arm guillotine. So I got really, really good at squeezing that thing with the arm in. I think I put 5 kids to sleep, in my high school career. And, like I said, that really built up like, some hype around, my name. It's just like, basically, like you're really taking your chances shooting on Justin Rader. And there was only like, 1 or 2 kids in the state, that were really good at shooting and, turning that corner, making sure their head and neck was safe, and being able to put me on my back, and get their points that way, and change the whole, complete nature of the game and strategy I was going forward with to implement. So I got really, really good at squeezing, because it's what I spent all my time doing, practice, competitions. So I just brought that over into my jiu-jitsu game. And I already had a really good arm in guillotine. When I was able to start doing it no arm, it was just something, I did a lot, and I found it a lot because, like I'm also not really good at, holding and pinning people down for a long period of time, like especially from side control. And you have to remember too, like when I say this, like I'm talking from master, I was like, I mean, I was 16, 17, 18 competing against adults, and I would even do absolute divisions, I mean, there were, even people in my weight division, that were just, older, bigger, and, older and stronger that could basically bench press me, like right off from side control. And so I developed a game that would, let people turn, and as they turn, most people feel like turtle is a good position. Turtle is a terrible position. And the fact that it doesn't score points, in jiu-jitsu is an absolute, atrocity and travesty, and just makes no sense. The IBJJF gives it, an advantage, which, advantages suck anyway and don't make sense. If you can't tell, I'm very, very passionate about the rules and the way that they're written, and I think that most of them are ridiculous, and I try not to be, too harsh. Like, I think it sounded good in theory. I think you had to put it in practice, but like the fact that it's been in practice and, like for as long as it has, and we can't seem to fix that problem, like really irritates me. But, the fact that, turtle position, doesn't score when I force you there makes no sense. But I was really good at, funneling and forcing people into that position. And I had a really good front headlock already, so I used to finish by a lot of guillotines. And, again, it kind of like, really opened up like, okay, well, it's why you don't see as many guillotine finishes from me, because I use the guillotine to really shut you down. You have to sell out on stopping my guillotine, that it gives me your back. And, so then you start talking about calf slicer, where did the whole calf slicer thing, come into play and develop, and how did that develop? That actually it's really funny. When I started training jiu-jitsu, the rules were really, really different. And there wasn't a whole lot of like, this is illegal until this belt and that's illegal till that belt. There wasn't a lot of that, and so I was taught how to do a calf slicer when I was a yellow belt in jiu-jitsu. And I remember I was 14 years old, and it was the first time I ever tapped one of the adults in training. I was 14 years old, and I got him in a calf slicer and just ripped his leg right off. And it was awesome, and then of course, like, I don't know, a year later or so, like, oh my gosh, now it's, banned and illegal till brown belt, which is stupid. And doesn't make sense. But, so I'd known about the calf slicer for a long time, but I wasn't able to really put it in use or practice or in competition, especially at blue belt, because it became illegal. But, and I'm sorry, like, I think the whole dividing things up by, like dividing brackets up by belt is also stupid. I think that we shouldn't do that, but, cause we don't do it in no gi, because you're not wearing your belt in no gi, so like, like in my, like the very end part of my blue belt, and beginning part of my purple belt, like I was a purple belt, and in some cases even a blue belt, but I was competing professionally in no gi. Okay. So I could do calf slicers in no gi, but I couldn't do them in gi, which in my opinion is just stupid. But whatever, I digress, So I had a long time ago, I had a match with Ryan Hall. And
I saw that on your record.
Excellent guard game. We had our first match at blue belt, and I was lucky enough to be able to win that match. And but man, like passing his guard, not easy, And so it was like, a lot of people tried to pass Ryan's guard, and it was like, well, let's, how about like instead of trying to pass, let's try to stack and go underneath. And I got, I developed kind of a stacking, trying to force him into turtle, and I would, get my hooks in and try to get my points that way. And, of course in practice, like, I did, and every place is different. Like, like at my academy, I teach my kids how to calf slice. I teach them how to wrist lock. I teach them everything illegal, because one day they're going to be able to use it, like, some places, oh, you can't roll, you can't do certain, like you have to roll to the belt level of what the IBJJF considers is legal or illegal. So like, like you can't learn how to, calf slice. You can't use calf slicers even in sparring or training at whatever academy. And not every academy is like this, but like a lot of them, like, you can't oh, you can't do that till brown belt. Like people will actually get like butt hurt about that kind of stuff. And to me, it's laughable and it's hilarious. And maybe because I didn't come from that, I just don't see the point. It's like, I mean, at the end of the day, pain is pain. And what are you supposed to do in training when you have pain? You're supposed to tap. And then everything stops and they let go or whatnot, and you learn. And, so what are we really arguing about at the end of the day? You get butt hurt because you got beat by a move that you don't know anything about because you don't train it or aren't supposed to train it or are told you can't. And now your pride and ego is hurt because you got schooled on something you know nothing about. And it's a glaring hole, but like people, oh, you can't do that here, blah, 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 which is just like, it's a cop out. It's an excuse. Let's just call it what it is. And look, let's look, at ourselves. Let's look at the hard truth. Let's look in the mirror, and really face what's really happening. Like it was something you don't know and you got schooled in, and now you want to whine and cry about it, So that's, I mean, can my kids wrist lock in tournaments right now? No. Can they calf slice? No. Can they heel hook? No. What else is illegal?
Knee bars.
Yeah, can they knee bar? No. Can they, can they bicep slice? No. Do I teach them these things? Yes, I do. Right? I don't hold back in what I teach them. Now I'm very, very conscious and aware, and I have, usually 3 to 4 instructors on the mats when they're sparring anyway, and it's just like, look, like, first of all, if you're in pain, you tap, and that's on you. That's your responsibility. Second of all, like, on some of these things, like, if you are, especially, and I tell them this all the time, like, if you are higher rank and you are higher caliber, don't put things in like, so hard that you hurt someone. Like, man, they're trying to tap and they still get hurt. We want to try to avoid those things, but like, especially with a calf slicer, like you hang on to a calf slicer a little too long, and what happens? You get up and it's like getting Charlie horse. Like you limp around a little bit, like, your calf kind of hurts or whatnot. Maybe you even limp around for a whole day, but you're fine. You hyperextend your arm to a certain point, like the same kind of level, and you're done for like 3 to 4 weeks, because like, oh my God, your arm tightens up and you can't use your arm, so like why is a calf slicer illegal, at the kids level and not legal till brown, but you can arm bar someone, like who thought this through, and I ask myself that sometimes, like, why did they, who determined what should and shouldn't be illegal or whatever. So that's kind of how I feel about the whole thing, but like, yeah, do I teach them everything illegal? I absolutely do, because I was able to develop it from, like a very, very young age from the very beginning. And then I had opponents like Ryan Hall, where I developed like, oh man, this is how I stack to the back, and I couldn't calf slice at that time because I was a purple belt, but I certainly, drilled it and trained it. And in purple belt, even being a purple belt, I could compete in pro no gi, where I could, like heel hooks were sometimes allowed. Calf slicers were definitely allowed, so I was able to put it in practice, and do it for a very long time. And when you think about it, like, I've won multiple tournaments, where I was able to get at least one calf slicer. I won one tournament at black belt where I calf sliced everybody. Why does it work so much? Because it's a little unorthodox. You don't see a lot of people out there where like that's like one of the number one things they're looking for. Well, for me it is, why? Because it is unorthodox and people aren't really ready for it. What are people ready for? Arm bars. What are people ready for? Rear naked chokes. What are people ready for? Triangles, so their defense is really high to this and whatnot. Like I've been in a number of matches with a number of high level guys that didn't see this calf slicer coming at all. It just hit them like a blind, like they got blindsided by a truck. And I was able to finish some pretty high level guys with the calf slicer just because it's a little unorthodox. The guillotine is a little more orthodox, and so people are ready for it, you know. But I really use my guillotine and front headlock game to shut people down so much that I get a free shot right to their back where I can roll and insert, you know, my hook to get my calf slicer, and that's why you see a whole lot of those. So yeah, that's kind of how they both developed.
Nice, awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that.
Of course.
Okay, so last question, and this is kind of just like basically will be a good place to maybe kind of cap the chronology here. Like, what's it been like owning your own martial arts academy?
Incredible. I absolutely love it. It's been a fantastic experience. You know, when you start out too, it's like, you know, and I've been asked this before, was it always your dream to have a martial arts academy? Nope. Yeah, I didn't know I was going to be good at this until, you know, I was in my early 20s anyway. So when did that dream start to develop? You know, I was probably about in my early 20s when I was like, man, like this would be really cool to do one day. I see the benefits. I see the ability that I'm able to give back. I see the lives I'm able to change and impact. And that's what I love about it. Just like anything in life, are there things about it that I don't like? Sure. Are there things about it I'm still learning? Sure. You know, but you just have to put the time in, you know, like when I was in my early 20s, you know, what did I think was important? You know, man, having the best, you know, highest world-class caliber skills that I could then teach, you know, to students later on. And, you know, that's, there's a whole other side of it. Like, you know, was I like, you know, I don't know how to, you know, I don't have a business degree, you know, I don't know how to market. I don't know any of that. I didn't know how to set things up. I didn't know how to sell memberships. I had zero experience in doing any of that. And it's something that I've had to, you know, there's a learning curve, like I said, to everything. And at the very beginning, it was scary, you know, very, very scary. I didn't know what I was doing. And, you know, so like having to really, you know, like, I mean, I had the skills, you know, and I have a curriculum that I wrote personally, you know, but it was like, okay, well now how do I let people know where I'm at? How do I market? How do I get people in? How do I sell memberships? How do I take phone calls? I didn't have any of those skills. And, you know, so like my story, it's just so funny the way it played out. You know, when I started on this journey, a really good friend of mine named Caleb Plank, you might know him. He called, yeah, right. Yeah. He called me one day, or not. He sent me a text one day out of the blue. And, you know, he was asking me if I might, you know, come, you know, bring some of the guys to a tournament. I was like, well, you know, like I'm really not, you know, in that stage of life right now. And so we called and we talked, and I told him, like, you know, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm doing. And man, he provided so much insight and so much wisdom. You know, like I've learned so much from him, you know, when it comes to, you know, running this as a business, because he's out there, and you know, like 12, 13, 14, maybe 15 years that, you know, Inferno Martial Arts has been around. And, you know, he's really, really helped me, you know, guide and mentor to me, which is something I think that we all need, you know, like, and the whole business aspect side of things or whatnot. Like I was completely on my own. And so, you know, having someone like that, you know, who reached out, and then, you know, now being able to turn to, like, you know, we would not be, you know, having the success, you know, we're having here as a team, without his guidance and without his input. And so I'm forever thankful and forever grateful, to him. And, you know, like everything that he's, you know, but he taught me, you know, like, you know, here's how you answer phones. He taught me, you know, here's how you sell memberships. You know, he was like, this is what we need to do, you know, for marketing. This is what we need to do, you know, for this, that, and the other. And, you know, like even situations that come up and arise, you know, cause like I've really come to learn, like, you know, like it's not so cookie cutter, you know, like there are a lot of, you know, this is part of the situation, you know, this is part of this person's, you know, scenario. They asked me this question and I didn't know how to respond, you know, like, and so getting a chance to work with him. But, you know, the whole aspect of, you know, getting to teach, you know, what I've been taught and pass on what I've learned, and, you know, the ability to share these stories, you know, with those coming up after me is, you know, I've seen so few things in life that are, as rewarding and fulfilling, as I get to do every single day. And I love seeing light bulbs turn on, and I love seeing, lives be impacted and changed for the better. Does that necessarily like mean gold medals and equate to gold medals? No, it doesn't. We've seen so many things happen in our academy already, so many stories, of quote unquote off the mat, grades have improved, people standing up for their friends at school, whatever the case may be. If we've seen so much of that already, and it's absolutely incredible. And there's nothing, honestly, I'd really rather be doing, with my life, but again, again, it's not without its problems. It's not without, especially at the beginning, it was scary, it was scary, and you get through that. And, it's been really, really awesome. And I absolutely love doing it. And, I had once built a leadership team up before of 8 kids. And, that first team, that I built, I didn't, I thought so much, I was teaching them, and I came to realize, I learned so much, from that first team. And now we're getting to see, we're building it again. And I love, as much as I love teaching martial arts, I also feel like, as martial arts instructors, that we have a responsibility. I don't think that there's anything out there, as empowering and as confidence building as, training in martial arts. I don't think you can get it from sports like football. I don't think you can get it from sports to the extent quite the same as like basketball, track, swimming, whatever, whatever, baseball, whatever sport. I don't think anything teaches, confidence and self-empowerment like martial arts. And therefore, I believe as martial artists that we have a very due diligence to do our very best to actually teach real leadership. And those 8 leadership team kids, they really started me on this path of, what is it? What is, how do you really define the word leader? How do you really define the word leadership? What do those things really mean? I see so many, and I see it all the time. I see people who pay lip service to it. Oh yeah, we teach this, and we offer, it'll build their confidence, self-discipline, self-esteem, leadership, yada yada, and they throw that term in there, and it sounds really good. And I don't think most people have any idea what it means. I think if we ask people to define what a leader really is, I really would, because I was no different. I was leading these 8 kids. And I was like, I asked myself, I got to a point where I didn't really feel like I was doing a good job. And so I asked myself, was like, well, define leader, beyond someone who leads people, like, which is a very generic, basic definition. I guess that's true, but it's not what a leader really is. And I asked myself the hard truth. I looked myself right in the mirror, and faced myself without any excuses. I was like, I can't do that. I can't define leader. And I was like, well, define leadership. And I couldn't do that. I was like, those are some big red flags. And that team, because of that, I researched leadership. I started reading about it. I started listening to leadership podcasts, and I found this. I was like, oh my gosh, I have learned so much, because of those first 8 kids and how they impacted and influenced my life, and now, now that I know what I'm actually doing it. So what I was learning, I started to pass on to those 8 kids. And seeing the change that it made, for them and what they're doing with their lives now, it's been absolutely incredible. And now I've got the second team, that I'm building right now inside of Legacy Martial Arts. And, it's absolutely incredible. It's a junior instructors leadership team that I've created. I have an 8-year-old girl, who's a gray black belt that can already teach and lead classes, all by herself. She doesn't even need me, on the floor per se. She actually already has all those skills, and so many of them, I give them opportunities, and chances to lead. They lead lineup, another will lead warm-ups, another will lead drills. From time to time, I even let them teach techniques, because I think it's great for the other kids, especially the little kids, to look up to some of their peers and be able to even learn from them. There are things that they can do that are better, like one of the best students I ever had was a woman now named Sarah Lau, or I say now named, a woman named Sarah Lau. She's now, like when she started training, you know, she was 5, and, you know, she's about to graduate high school now. And, you know, so like, you know, my game was always, you know, go out there, take you down, try to pass your guard, smash, stay on top. And so, you know, being one of my longest time students, her game was completely the opposite. You know, it was go out there, pull guard, wrap you up in spider guard. You can't pass here. Now I've swept you. Now I'm on top. Now I win, you know? And so, you know, like every single time she's able to come around, you know, I always give her a chance to teach in the younger kids classes, like, you know, cause like, it's so like no one needs to be looking up, you know, to, like, I don't need to be the only instructor at all times. It's, you know, so empowering for these kids to look up to Sarah and see Sarah, like, you know, in front of them teaching spider guard, you know, because to be really, 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 really honest, I use spider guard one time in my entire career of competition. I used spider guard one time to win one match, and that was it. She's used spider guard to win all of her matches. So she's actually has more experience winning matches using spider guard than I do. And it's just like it's so cool for the kids, you know, like to be able to see that, you know, and that's what real, you know, true leadership is. They giving them the opportunity, giving them these opportunities and seeing them, you know, spread their wings and, you know, they get a chance to even see for themselves that, you know, they can do this, that leadership has nothing to do about rank, title, position, or age. It is a choice. It is a decision to just help out and look out for those around you, you know, and that is the true anthropological definition of what a leader actually is. And I could not do that. I couldn't write it down. I could not communicate it even as confidently as I just did. You know, gosh, when did we build that team? Like it was the first team we built was like 6 years ago. So getting the chance to continue to, you know, not just teach martial arts, but, you know, hand in hand, in tandem, right alongside it, you know, teach martial arts, but then like, cause learning martial arts is great, but why are we doing this? What should we be using our skills for? How do we use our skills both on the mat, but even more importantly, off the mat? Off the mats, we need to be leaders. We need to be the leaders in the community. We need to be the ones taking the stand. We need to be the ones looking out for other people. That is our job. And as martial artists, as you know, being able to teach, you know, the highest level of self-empowerment and confidence, it is our responsibility to look at ourselves as martial arts leaders in the community, you know, and not just people that can beat people up.
Hell yes. No, man, that is super inspiring. Like, I mean, I feel a very similar sense of responsibility. It's like a duty, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and two, you know, and my experience with leaderships is that it's a very selfless thing, and it's not something that I'm like, oh yeah, I love being a leader. You know, it's like a lot of times it can be burdensome, or it can be a lot of stress, or it can be not having answers repeatedly, like you mentioned earlier. You know, but the process of it is rewarding. You can't not learn from it, and you know, it's been very rewarding for me over the years anyway. So
absolutely, you know, like, and that's the hardest thing too, you know, like, again, people will pay it lip service and throw it around, you know, like, you know, oh yeah, you know, we teach leadership, being a leader is awesome, you know, and whatnot. Like, you know, like, and don't get me wrong, it is, but in what sense? You're absolutely right. It's not always easy. It's honestly one of the hardest, that you are going to endure so many hardships from it and through it by, you know, stepping into that role. However, at the end of the day, it is very rewarding. It's very fulfilling, and will leave you, you know, with a feeling of a sense of accomplishment and contentedness, you know, that you have really helped other people around you. And sometimes, honestly, most times, they don't really appreciate it in that moment. It's usually something that comes around years later. They'll look back and it was like, you know what? You told me the hard truth then. You know, I see it now. You were really trying to look out for me. You know, it's just like that. You know, like you know, and I tell my kids this all the time. You know, it sounds really great. You know, who wants to be a leader? You know, everyone raises their hand. Okay. You know, like now, how many of you guys like, you know, want to endure the hardest thing you're going to ever endure, you know? And not as many hands go up. If you're not willing to endure and suffer, you know, extreme hardships, you know, especially from an emotional level, because that's, you know, where leadership takes its biggest toll is like, you know, like you are trying to help, and your intention is to help, but it's not always received that way, you know? Sometimes people don't want to hear what you have to say, you know, like my leadership team now, I tell them constantly, like, I am not building a team of yes men. Don't search for words. Don't tell me, you know, especially when I ask for your opinion, don't tell me what you think I want to hear. That's not what I want. I you know, cause I mean, I'm at where I'm at now, you know, like I want to be, you know, I want to hear what you really think. I want real feedback. I don't want it sugar coated. I don't want you to, you know, just tell me whatever you think I want to hear. You know, if you think that I'm screwing up, I want to hear it, you know? And I mean, I'm, you know, one of them, she's 8, you know, this is a fun story, you know? I saw some kids out of the corner of my eye while I was teaching a move once, you know, kind of messing around, you know, they'd already been warned a couple of times in class, you know, so I all of a sudden this big commotion happened, you know, and I just, like I said, I caught it out of the corner of my eye, you know, I was like, hey, you 3 go over there on that part of the wall, have a seat, you know, I'll address you guys in a minute. And, you know, so, one of my leadership team kids, her name is Elisa. She's 8 years old. She saw everything because she was, you know, I was using another one of the leadership team kids to show a move. And so she got to see what all the commotion was about. She got to see it actually play out, you know, so we braked and everyone got their part where they started drilling. And I started walking over there to those kids, you know, and again, they've already been warned a couple of times in class. Like, you know, I was kind of on the war path, you know, I was like, this is going to be a very firm delivering now of, you know, hey, we can't act that way. We can't be a disruption and distraction, you know, when I'm teaching moves. This is, you know, part of the discipline we need to learn, you know, as martial arts students, you know, but I had gotten it wrong. The real instigator was someone much further out of the corner of my eyesight that I could see. And so he was over there still drilling, you know, and like I said, I'm on the warpath. Well, Elisa comes and runs right in front of me, and she was like, hey, Professor Rader, she started to say something, and I just kind of like, you know, just like a wide, you know, I was like, I'll be with you in a second. And she had to do a circle. She had to turn a run around, get right back in front of me. She's like, whoa, hang on. And like put both of her hands out in front of me and just said, stop. Like, I need to tell you something. And I was like, well, if Elisa is doing this, I probably better hear her out, because I didn't know what it was about. And she was like, I don't think you saw exactly what happened, you know? And so she told me what happened. And I looked right down at her and I was like, thank you so much, you know? Cause like these kids weren't really the ones really responsible. It was the other one, you know? And, you know, that and I, you know, so I share that story with them all the time. Like, you know, she was not afraid to get in front of me. She's 8 years old and I'm 26, you know, I don't like to admit my age anymore, you know, like, no, I'm almost 34 and I've got this 8-year-old girl who had the guts to, cause I tried to just, you know, kind of like, whoop, you know, like a wide receiver passing a cornerback, you know, just pass her up by. She had the guts to turn around and get back in front of me. It was just like, stop. You know, because she knew I didn't see what really happened, you know, and we were able to get it right, you know, and that's awesome. You know, it's like, I like, you know, and I have so much respect for her now, you know, and it's just like, you know, like those, I'm not building a team of yes men. I'm building a team of people that are not afraid to stand up to me, you know, like I will hear you out, you know, and we may not always agree, but at the end of the day, I'm going to value your opinion, you know, like, and that you delivered it to me honestly, you know, and of course, like we're going to always present a united front, you know, but like, especially in our leadership team meetings, like, man, if there's something, you know, or something like that, you know, like, which was, you know, a very, you know, private one-on-one conversation, you know, where, I mean, she didn't stand up in the middle of class and was just like, Professor Rader, you completely missed that. Well, you know, that would have been disrespectful, you know, but, you know, she did have the guts to turn right around, run around, get in front of me. And, you know, it was really a cool moment, you know, to see, like, you know, and again, it just goes to show you, you know, leadership has nothing to do with age. it has nothing to do with age. Like, you know, she was there and she was looking out for her 2 other younger teammates, you know, I was getting ready to go have a very firm conversation with, you know, before they jump back into class, you know, and, you know, that's, you know, and we were able to get the whole situation right, which was awesome, you know? So it's another story that I look back on, and you know, it actually had happened one other time. Sarah Lau, you know, had done that to me once. I misinterpreted a situation, and she came to me later. She was like, hey, here's what really happened. And, you know, I have, you know, and especially if I'm wrong, I'm the first to apologize. You know, I had to call one of the kids over again after class. Hey, you know what? This is what I saw. This is what I thought I saw. This is how I interpreted it. You know, like, you know, your teammate, Sarah Lau, told me like, hey, that's not really exactly what happened, you know? So I'm going to give you an apology right now, you know, because those things happen. And that's just how, like, that's how, like, it's also how you learn to disagree and respect each other, as opposed to just like, oh my gosh, they disagree with me, I hate them now, you know? Like, that's not good or productive either, you know? So yeah, it's been an incredible journey.
Yeah. And that, man, that's leadership too. Just the ability to be like, you know what? I was wrong.
And it happens, you know?
It does, you know, and like with jiu-jitsu over the years, like, I mean, I've adapted and changed. Like, let's just say you showed me a better way to do the guillotine or whatever. I'd be like, hey guys, maybe that previous way I was showing you.
I do it all the time, you know? Like I know what I'm really good at, but I'm also okay with not being good, you know? And that's the story that I share with my kids now. It's you know, I get asked, you know, all the, like, first of all, it's like a lot of times people just assume that I wrestled in college. I didn't wrestle in college. You know, people ask me why, you know, and I've had some different answers over the years, you know, like the answer I used to give was I just didn't think I had what it took. And that's true. All right. But the real reason, all right, if I look at the real hard truth and I really break it down, the reason I didn't was because I did not possess the strength to be vulnerable and tell anyone how I was feeling. I guarantee you, if I had told my coach, hey, I'm considering not wrestling in college because I don't think I have what it takes, because I wasn't believing in myself, I guarantee you 15 minutes of talking to my wrestling coach, Andy Howington, he would have turned me around. I very well might have wrestled in college, but I didn't possess the humility to be open and vulnerable and be secure in what I know and what I don't know. I actually thought the complete opposite back then. I thought if I had that conversation with him, he would look at me as like a wimp or a weakling, or that I was weak. And so I felt like if I opened up and I was vulnerable like that, I really felt like I would be looked at as weak. Whereas, you know, like we have a very warped view, you know, I believe today in our society of what, like, you know, the true definition of humble is. You know, humble is not, you know, like what we, you know, like we teach kids not to brag, which again, you shouldn't do. You don't want to, you know, come off as arrogant. Okay. But so, okay. If coming off as arrogant is like, you know, look at me and bragging or whatnot, what's the complete opposite? You know, the complete opposite is, you know, like, not talking about yourself, don't think good things about yourself, you know, like how do a lot of people view humility? Oh, it's not me, you know. Have you ever been given a compliment and you're like, no, I just got lucky, I really suck, you know? Like, that's not humility. That's not even modesty. That right there, that's weakness. Okay. That's weakness. All right. Humility, all right, is not that, okay? Humility is being okay and open with being vulnerable, all right? That's what real, true humility is. And so we have a very warped view. We think of, you know, what we think of as humility is actually, you know, real weakness. Had I opened up, all right, and I had the strength to open up or whatnot, I very well might have wrestled in college, and who knows what I might have gone on, you know, to do. Who knows how my life might have been different. I don't necessarily regret my decision to keep grappling or whatnot, but at least I would have made the decision for the right reasons then, because I made it for all the wrong reasons. And so that's another, you know, like it's very, very important to be, you know, secure in what you know and what you don't know. And there are plenty of people like I said, you know, earlier, Sarah Lau has a much better spider guard and has used it to win more matches than I have. You know, I'm the 2-time black belt world champion or whatnot, you know, but like, I know, where I'm good, and I know where other people can learn from other people, and probably even, make it better for, and you know what, if that takes them that much further and makes them that much better, that much faster, I have I don't need to always be the one teaching. I don't need to always be the one in the spotlight, First of all, share that spotlight, if you're going to be a leader, also part of being a leader is building those up around you, not, making them feel like they should, or that I feel like, oh my gosh, like, what if more people look up to Sarah than me now, like if you have that kind of thinking, you have a very, you have a security insecurity problem.
Yeah, man. Well, man, it sounds like you have got some awesome momentum going behind your academy, and you have an amazing background, and I'm excited. I talk to people about this a lot. It's like, yeah, the Greg Jacksons and all our heroes, all our heroes. Yeah, but what about their students? I'm excited about what they're going to do.
Right. Exactly. And we could get so caught up in, the legends, and gold medals or whatnot, like there's a lot going on out there that maybe we should try to shed and bring some more light to, like other than what happens on the world competition level stage. And don't get me wrong, like that will build you a platform, but what are you going to use with that platform? Who might you be able to shed light on and share your platform with,
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. Well, man, I really appreciate you once again for coming on the podcast. Hopefully we'll get to see you soon, and, happy rolling and stay safe and everything in the meantime.
Yep. You guys too. Yeah. Thanks so much again for having me. I always appreciate the opportunity. Absolutely an honor. And hopefully, like most of the, as we continue to move, hopefully, or move through phases, like hopefully we'll be able to, be able to get around, back to, in-person training. And I hope to make it up there again soon.
All right, man. Awesome. We'll see you then.
Take care.
All right. Take it easy, man.